On April Fool's Day, Fantasy Flight Games announced its newest hero pack, Spiderham. Now, some people didn't know if they should take this as a joke or a real thing, and as you go through the cards, it seems pretty appropriate that this hero would be announced on April Fool's Day. We have about half the cards currently released, and I'm going to be honest, for me personally, I'm kind of interested in this hero and the way that they will work. So let's take a quick dive into the character, see what Spider-Ham is all about. We'll check out some of the other cards that were announced with it as well, and briefly talk about just my overall thoughts and opinions on it. But before we really get into all that, if you don't mind, do me a huge favor, make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe. I really appreciate it. Really helps the channel out. And if you ever want to see me play Marvel Champions live, I stream on Sundays and Tuesdays over on twitch.tv /D20 Woodworking. So let's first look at the alter ego side of this card. Peter Porker, 5 recovery. And it has a response. After you make a basic recovery, place 1 toon counter on Peter Porker. Now, toon counters are going to be the main currency of Spider-Ham, right? It's going to be how this card works and operates for the most part. Almost think of War Machine, but I think this system might be a little bit better. We'll get into why in a little bit. But toon counters, it seems like it's going to be its main currency you need to use in different ways, including an interesting way on its hero side. So Spider-Ham, 2 thwart, 1 attack, 1 defense. Each toon counter on Spider-Ham can be spent as if it were a wild resource. Now, again, this is not limited to once per round, once per turn, or anything like that. So you can use this, if you have 10 of them, you can use it 10 times, hypothetically, what this card says. And it also responds, after Spider-Ham takes any amount of damage, you place 1 toon counter on him. So where War Machine, every time War Machine flipped over to his hero side, he got a bunch of ammo counters. Now you start off with pretty much 0. And you work your way up, building them up. And I like this system more because any damage Spider-Ham takes will increase the toon counter count. And it's not limited to once per round or anything like that. So if you take a bunch of small damages from minions, it's going to build up faster, right? If you take indirect damage, it's going to build it up. Even if you block and take some damage, right? There's so many different ways. If you get retaliated, it's going to increase your toon counter. There's different ways to really play off of this and give you different way, or it gives you a bunch of different ways to get toon counters, which I find really interesting and a cool way of doing this. So let's dive right into his deck, because he's got a bunch of interesting event cards and upgrade cards. Now, we don't know all the cards yet, all right? So we don't fully know what he's all about yet. One of the things that's missing is a big damage card, which will be interesting to see what that is and how many toon counters that costs, because I think that will change a lot. But let's dive into the first event card, which is Ham It Up. 0 cost event. You remove 1 threat from a scheme for each toon counter on Spider-Ham. Now, this is a gross card, right? This is absolutely gross in my opinion, because if you have 4 or 5 toon counters on him, you play a free event card to remove 1 thwart from a scheme for each toon counter. You don't have to remove the toon counters. You can thwart and then spend the toon counters later. This is kind of interesting. It seems kind of overpowered depending on how efficiently you can get toon counters on yourself. But that's his first main thwarting card. And I gotta say, I really like it. It's a really strong card. Next, we have Hogwash. It's a 1 cost event. Remove 1 toon counter from Spider-Ham. Loudly read this card's flavor text, which you'll notice is a common theme of Spider-Ham is doing things out loud, which we'll get into. It's a fun little gimmick. It's interesting. I'll give it that. Choose to either deal 5 damage to a minion or remove 5 threat from a side scheme. Now, it's kind of cool to see an event card actually focus on not the main scheme and not the villain, right? It specifically targets minions or side schemes, which I think is really, really interesting. I think it makes deck building maybe a little different, maybe a little more harder. But that's the main event that we have for attack that we know of. Now, most likely, I would assume that there'll be another big attack card in there somewhere that will hit maybe only the villain. That's how they'll play it. I don't know. But as of right now, all we know is 5 damage to a minion or remove 5 threat from a side scheme. The other event card that we know is I Don't Think So. It's a hero interrupt. When you reveal a card from the encounter deck, remove 1 toon counter from Spider-Ham. Say, I don't think so, in your best Spider-Ham voice. It's not going to go well for me. Cancel the effects of that card and discard it. Pretty good card. It's maybe a little expensive. 1 cost, 1 toon counter, especially depending on how toon counters work in the future. To cancel the effects of a card and discard it is nice, though. It's nice to see more of these heroes get these cancel type cards. The other event that we know of is a 0 cost event, Petulant Pig. It's a hero action. Stick your tongue out at the villain. the villain attacks you, draw 3 cards. Now, again, this could be good in the sense that you want to kind of be attacked, right? Because you need to get those toon counters up, plus it lets you draw cards on top of it. It's a pretty cool system. We've seen it other times, and we've seen that card be used in other ways, or a version of that card. But I like it. It makes sense for this card, and really helps out Spiderham. Then we get into the upgrades. There's 3 upgrades that we know of. First, the 2-cost upgrade, Organic Web. Spiderham gets +1 thwart, so we put him up to 3 thwart, a super powerful thwarting character at this rate. Exhaust Organic Webbing and remove 1 toon counter from Spiderham. Ready Spiderham. He also gains the aerial trait. So you could thwart for 3, use a toon counter to ready up, thwart for another 3. Seems pretty good in my opinion. It'll be fun to see if there's other aerial cards that come out. There's some pretty good ones right now. Again, he has a wild resource. I could see him using aerial cards a lot. The one big gripe I've always had with aerial cards is they're all pretty expensive, and not everyone can play aerial cards. The fact that he could have a bunch of wild resources and play these cards, I think makes Spiderham kind of really interesting in that sense. So the next upgrade we know of is a 2-cost huge wooden hammer. He gets +1 attack, and when Spiderham makes a basic attack, exhausts wooden hammer, remove 1 toon counter, and Spiderham gets +2 for that attack, and it gains overkill. This is great, right? You could essentially get up to 4 attack, use Organic Webbing to ready up, and then do another 2 attack, right? It wouldn't do 4 and 4, but you could get 6 attack in a round using 2 toon counters. So I kind of like that. It's a pretty good setup. And the last upgrade that we know of is a 1-cost upgrade, Cartoon Physics. When your identity would take any amount of damage, discard this card. Wiggle your body and prevent all but 1 of that damage. Now, it's important that it prevents all but 1 because you do want to take some damage, right? Again, you want to increase that toon counter. That's going to be your main currency. And then lastly, we know of his ally, his hero-specific ally is Captain America. It's a 3-cost, 2 thwart, 2 attack. This is a pretty normal pattern that we have seen. Response, and 3 life, I'm sorry. After Captain America enters play, give someone a high five, which really quick. If I'm playing solo, I can't give someone else a high five. So I guess I can give myself a high five. So I'm looking forward to high-fiving myself on stream a lot. Place 1 toon counter on your identity and shuffle 1 Spiderham card from your discard pile back into your deck. Really good hero. I mean, this is a really good hero. Again, it's a free toon counter, which is really nice. From just the cards that I'm seeing, with being able to play like Ham It Up again, I think it's huge. I think it's great. So I really like those cards that we've seen so far. I think they're really strong and they're really great. So let us dive into the other cards that we have seen. Pretty much it looks like a bunch of Justice cards is what we know about so far. So there are 2 ally cards that we know that will be joining Spiderham. And the first one is Lady Spider. It's a 4-cost ally with 2 thwart, 2 attack, and 2 consequential damage on each of those, and 4 life. So Lady Spider is a web warrior. This is a keyword we're probably going to see a ton of. After Lady Spider thwarts and removes threat from a scheme, if you control another web warrior card, remove an equal amount of threat from a different scheme, which is really great because Spiderham is a web warrior, right? A lot of the cards that we're seeing now are web warriors. This card will play off of Spiderham really well. So you'll be able to do 2 thwarts somewhere, 2 thwarts somewhere else. Fantastic. We're going to see something like that coming up again, which I'm kind of interested in getting into. We also have another Spider-Man card. It's a 3-cost ally, 1 thwart, 1 attack, 3 life, 1 consequential for each. After Spider-Man enters play, remove 1 threat from a scheme for each web warrior card you control, including that Spider-Man. So again, this could be really great if you have 3 web warriors out. Just playing Spider-Man out there will let you remove 1 thwart from a scheme for each one, so it lets you remove 3 thwart, right? And then you could also thwart for an additional 1 from his normal ability, or you can attack, or whatever else you choose. So a pretty good card, not fantastic, but I do like it. So then we have an upgrade and an event. So first we'll do the event, because the upgrade I think is really interesting. So 2-cost event, it's Even the Odds. It's a requirement card with energy resource. So you have to spend energy resources to play the card, which is going to be a new interesting way to do this. So to hear action, thwart, remove 1 threat per character that's playing from each side scheme. Deal 1 damage to each villain for each side scheme defeated this way. Obviously, you can see part of the problem with this is that if you're playing solo, most likely there's not a ton out there that just have 1 thwart left. Maybe there is. I don't Personally, off the bat, I just don't see this card being used a ton in solo play. 2-player, I think it makes more sense. I think it will work better. For solo play, I don't know. I don't think it's going to work that well because I don't know how many times I've played where I've had just one threat left on a side scheme, right, or on the main scheme. For the most part, it seems like I usually thwart for 2 or 3 to remove it down to 0. We'll see when it actually comes into play. I'm interested to see how it works out. I like the idea that you could deal 1 damage to each villain for each side scheme defeated this way. I think the most I've ever done, or the most I've ever had out where this would work was like 2 or 3, so it'd just be 2 or 3 damage. I guess it kind of works. I don't know. I'm interested to see it when it actually gets played out in action. All right, so finally is Overwatch, which is probably the most interesting card that I've seen in a long time. So with a 0 cost upgrade, you attach to a scheme. It's allowed 1 per scheme. When any amount of threat is removed from attached scheme by a thwart, discard this card. Remove an equal amount of threat from a different scheme. Now, there are a ton of heroes out there right now that can thwart for 5, right? Miss Marvel with her sneak by can do it. Gamora can do it, right? There's actually quite a few heroes that can do this right now. So for a 0 cost upgrade, you could thwart 5 off of a scheme and then thwart 5 off of another scheme. I think this is huge. It's zero cost upgrade to do this. I mean, I think that changes a lot. I think that makes Justice really able to handle side schemes better. I know that's always been kind of a tough thing for a lot of people to balance, is once there's like 1 or 2 side schemes out there, it's where do you put your focus. Overwatch can kind of clear the board out, really. I personally think it's a little maybe overpowered of a card. You know, I'm interested to see how it actually plays when it gets out there, but just right out of the gate, this one caught my eye right away, and I think it's going to be a card that whenever I play Justice, it's pretty much an automatic include. I really don't see why you wouldn't put this in there. So now that we did all this, let's get into the encounter decks or encounter cards that come with this hero pack. So the Inheritors are the modular encounter set, and they look tough. I'm just going to be completely honest. We're not going to go through it completely yet, but just looking at the different minions that are coming out with this deck, they're all pretty darn strong. They're pretty much geared to go against the web warriors. I think just against normal allies and heroes, these cards will be tough. But I think against web wars specifically, it's going to be even tougher, right? And I like that they're gearing this towards almost like different difficulty levels, right? So let's say that these minions, the Inheritors, are just like a normal difficulty against any other hero, except when you get to a web warrior, now they become a little bit more difficult. I kind of like that idea, right? I like changing it up. I like that it makes these modular encounter cards not so static, that, you know, some are really, really tough, so they don't get played as much as others. Well, now you can still play it. It's moderately hard. It's more difficult. I'm kind of excited by it. Again, I'm a really big fan of more modular sets. I know personally I like to start changing around what modular sets go with what villains. I think it's a really good practice. It's really interesting. So I'm kind of excited about this. And overall, when I look through all these cards for Spiderham, I'm intrigued. I saw a lot of interesting comments out there on the internet so far about this pack, and some people don't like the cartoonish style of it. They want a more serious game. They felt like this game has been pretty serious so far. They feel like this is kind of a little out of left field compared to some of the other stuff that has come out. Some people have thought that Spiderham's a little too strong right out of the gates, and honestly, I would agree with that part. He seems pretty strong right out of the gates. Now, again, we don't know all of his cards yet, so we don't know what the rest holds. If they're really weak cards out there, he still becomes a good hero, but not a great one, right? If the rest of the cards are pretty strong or kind of continue in the same vein, then, you know, he might be a top tier hero right out of the gates. So I saw a lot of people complain about that. Some people just don't like the character in general, which I kind of get. I'm not a huge Spiderham fan per se, but I still like that they're trying something new, right? I like that they're trying something different. I like the idea of tune counters. I think the system works. I think War Machine was a good practice run with those counters. I felt like with War Machine, it was a little tough to do, especially for solo. This is more of a solo friendly counter version. And I've seen some people complain about that too, where that a lot of these hero packs are geared mainly so they can be played solo. And there's a lot of truth to that, but a lot of the heroes that have come out just don't work great solo. And I'll be frank, that I think this one does. I think this one will work really well for solo players. I think naturally any deck that works really well for solo will generally work well for multiplayer games. Now, with that being said, most solo heroes have a set that's kind of the same, right? They have the same amount of defense cards, same amount of attack cards, same amount of thwart cards. And it would be nice to see Fantasy Flight kind of get out of that pattern, right? We've seen quite a few heroes now where they have, again, the same set, like 2 attack cards, 2 thwart cards, 2 defense cards, and maybe a couple upgrades that help either with more thwart, more attack, or something like that. And again, I get why they do it because it makes a more well-balanced hero, but I think at this stage of the game, I'd be almost okay with them kind of going outside of that, right? Maybe you have a hero that just straight up doesn't block at all, right? Not good at blocking, or is really not good at thwarting, or really not good at attacking. And it is more of a multiplayer card, or it relies heavily on aspects to make up where its faults are, right? I think I'd be okay with that at this point. Some of the heroes are starting to feel a little bit samey in that sense. It'd be interesting to see what the last hero pack is that comes out. So again, I like the hero. I like that it will play really well for solo. I always appreciate them doing solo stuff. But there does seem to be a little bit of a pattern that's going on. I hope they expand outside of that pattern. I hope that they continue pushing the envelope with these different counter ideas, with these different card ideas. I like it. I'll be honest. I like it. I'm definitely going to be getting it. I already paid for it. And I'm interested to play it. This will be a hero pack that when it comes out, I will start right away and see what it does and see how it works. So anyway, I appreciate you all taking the time to watch this video. I really do. If you have liked this content, please once again hit the like button down below, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts about this hero. Do you like it? Do you not like it? What would you like to see from Fantasy Flight? Or have you thought that everything they've been doing so far is pretty darn good and you wouldn't change much? All right, take care all. I appreciate it.